Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video. Last week for the midweek fixtures we went for Cole Palmer against Southampton as our captaincy, and yes, thankfully he did pull off a 14 pointer, which obviously does count as a success, as we do like to count our double digit captaincies as a success. However, it was actually Mo Salah that was the best captaincy last week. He did pick up, I want to say 18 points he got. It was potentially 16, but it was an 11 point swing anyway between the Salah captaincy and the Palmer captaincy. Obviously nothing really much we could do when we were looking at the stats last week. Salah really wasn't very favoured. Predicted points he was fairly low, even odds and stuff he was fairly low as well. So it is just that form that Salah is on, and we're going to have to keep it in mind for this week and future game weeks. So let's take a look at our 4 picks. So this week, 3 players are staying the same. We still have Salah, Haaland and Saka in here, but we have replaced Cole Palmer with Alexander Isak this week. Personally, I do think there is a big shout for Isak as a captaincy option this week. We saw him get a goal and an assist at home against Liverpool, and this week he's playing against one of the easier defences in the league, one of the worst defences in the league, especially for chances conceded down the middle. I believe they are currently sitting in second, and that is going to be Brentford. So hopefully some decent form, a nice run for Isak. So I did want to include him this week. Still have Saka, Haaland and Salah, of course, as well. One thing to note is this week we do have all away fixtures. So even if we did include Palmer in this video, he would also have an away fixture to Spurs. Now, it is something to keep in mind. Obviously, away fixtures are a little bit more difficult. In terms of home fixtures, it really was only Aston Villa against Southampton who had a decent shout. We will speak about that at the end when we have our differential captain, but let's take a look at our predicted points. So this week it is very close at the top between Erling Haaland and Mo Salah. Bukayo Saka and Isak are a little bit further down. For Fantasy Football Hub, they are just predicting Salah to do the best this week, followed by Haaland with 7 points. It is then Saka at 6.1, and then Isak is in at last place at 5.8. For FPL team, it is actually Haaland who is the number 1 for predicted points this week at 7.3, followed a little bit further back by Mo Salah at 6.6, then it's Saka at 5.6 and Isak down at 4.2 as well. Obviously, when you are picking someone who isn't one of your 4 big premiums like Isak, their predicted points are never really going to be that high because they aren't returning every single game the same way that your premiums are, so it is just something to keep in mind. So our season stats and our X minutes wise, we do essentially have 90-minute players all over the shop. It is 86 minutes, however, for Bukayo Saka. We know he can be substituted for everyone else. They are usually tending to play 90 minutes, 90 for Salah, 90 for Haaland and 90 for Isak. For XG, it is still Haaland leading the way with 12.4 despite not scoring a goal, and I want to say his last 6 matches. I could be wrong on that, but I think that is roughly right. With a matching XG to his actual goal tally. As we mentioned last week, Salah is slowly catching up to that with 10.3, and he's now outscored Haaland and is now the Premier League top goal scorer with 13 goals to Haaland's 12. For expected assists, it's still Saka leading the way with 5.1. He actually has 11 assists now, which is well clear at the top, and I believe it actually is Mo Salah in its second with 8. But again, in terms of looking at their expected assists, Saka is essentially half of what he has actually got. Then when you look at Mo Salah, he's only got 2.9 expected assists so far, and he actually has 8. In terms of return chances this week, fairly close as it has been in recent weeks, but it is Haaland again at the top with 66%, followed by Salah at 62, and then closely behind is Saka at 59 and Isak down the bottom at 57. For odds this week, it's not much that has changed. Of course, Haaland is still odds on to score, 50% chance of him picking up a goal this week. Salah not too far behind though, which is definitely something we don't normally see. Haaland is normally clear at the top when it comes to odds, but Salah has a 48% chance of scoring. In terms of scoring 2 or more goals, again it is Haaland at the top, followed by Salah with 20% to Salah's 15%. A little bit lower for the likes of Isak and Saka. Saka in terms of goal odds is always quite low. It is usually assists he does tend to pick up. Isak does have a very respectable 42%. 50% though for his chance of scoring. For opponents' clean sheets, it is Everton with the least chance of a clean sheet. So obviously Haaland does have the highest chance of scoring, but in terms of scoring more goals, it is Liverpool who have the benefit there. So in terms of lowest chances of clean sheet, highest chance of scoring more goals, it does favour Salah in that department. For set pieces, we have picked 4 penalty takers. As always, we do like to pick a penalty taker for our captaincy, just so we have that backup in case they don't score from open play. As we seen last week, Timber obviously scored from a header from another corner from Arsenal, but it wasn't Saka's side, it was Declan Rice who picked up the assist for that. So yes, Saka does have the advantage of the corners, and obviously we all know, if you've been watching the Premier League this season, that Arsenal are extremely dangerous from corners. Would be more, beneficial if Saka did have all of them, but he is still highlighted in orange as he only takes them from one side most of the time, at least. Obviously our new player Isak coming into it, he is also on penalties. Still yet to see what happens with Callum Wilson on the pitch. It is still listed as Isak though. In terms of rest this week, obviously lots of midweek fixtures this week for game week 14, but all 4 of our players did play on Wednesday night, so all with roughly the same amount of rest. It is Saka who does take the extra day though. He's the only player of the 4 who play on Sunday. Something to keep in mind as well, Salah is playing the early kickoff away from home to Everton. If you're, into superstitions and stuff, it could be something to keep in mind. Everyone else, Haaland and Isak are playing at regular time on Saturday, and then obviously it's Saka playing against Fulham on Sunday. For opponents' defences is where this always starts to get a little bit more interesting. It is Isak who is up against the weakest defence. Of course, we obviously mentioned this at the start of the video. This is why he is in the video. He's playing against the 6th worst defence. So Brentford were a lot worse a couple of weeks ago. They do still have 23.8 expected goals conceded, and they have conceded the most goals on this list as well. The main thing here with Isak though is that Brentford have conceded 114 chances down the middle of the park, which is number 2 in the Premier League. So a lot of chances going down Brentford's centre. They do concede a lot of shots as well, so someone like Isak definitely could benefit from this. And if you aren't if you aren't very fussed on the likes of Mo Salah or Haaland, it definitely could be a decent little differential option, because I don't think he's going to be captained too much. With Salah, however, Everton are the 12th worst defence in the league with 18.5 expected goals conceded and 21 actual goals conceded. It is worth noting as well that Jared Branthwaite is back for Everton, and they have kept 3 clean sheets in their last 4 games since he did come back. It is worth noting though that Man United played them at the weekend there and beat them 4-0. So despite those 3 clean sheets, they still conceded 4 to debatably an out of form / in form Manchester United, whichever way you want to look at it. For their chances conceded though, it is only 40 down the right hand side for Everton, so it is one of the least on this list. Obviously Fulham conceding a lot less. They are a much stronger defence, but I think it's going to be a tough game for Salah. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park green fixture that everyone is expecting. It is still a derby match, so I'm still expecting Liverpool to show up, but if you're looking at everything, this could be a disappointing week when everyone is probably going to be captaining Saka after his performance against Newcastle. I think you do have to look at that performance against Newcastle as well. Newcastle were considered a pretty strong defence, obviously playing at home as well. Wasn't really expecting Salah to do too well, which is why we captained Palmer during the week, but he still came up with 2 goals and an assist as well. So definitely someone that has a big shout for a perma captaincy. So even against an Everton who have looked a bit stronger in defence, they are still a very weak team, and Salah is in fantastic form. For Haaland, he is playing against a worse defence than Everton. It's Palace, who are sitting in 10th. They have conceded 18 goals this season, and they have 77 chances down the middle, which isn't too high. It's not too low either. So it's another one where Haaland is obviously pretty favoured on a lot of the other stats we've looked at. Obviously Kevin De Bruyne is back from his injury as well, picked up on a goal and an assist in the midweek games. So definitely in the back of my mind that Haaland does look like a really good pick for this week. Obviously his form does say otherwise. Do you want to risk the captaincy on him? Do you even still own him is another question. But yeah, definitely one that would have to be considered this week due to the level of defence. Obviously playing an easier team on paper than Salah is this week. For Saka, I'm pretty much ruling him out as a pick. Only 32 chances down the right hand side for Fulham, and they are the third best defence in the league, only behind Liverpool and Arsenal. So 14.3 expected goals conceded with 18 goals conceded. So for me, I don't think Saka's going to score. Potentially picks up an assist, don't think it's going to be too much. Maybe he gets a penalty or something as well. But in terms of the stats and stuff, Saka's not really looking like too good an option this week. So personally, he would be the fourth pick on this list for me. So despite a lot of the facts and stats really backing Erling Haaland this week, for me I can't go against Mo Salah's form. For game week 15, we're taking Mo Salah in the early kick-off against Everton in the Merseyside derby. In terms of why, he is still the highest expected points on Fantasy Football Hub. Everton have the lowest clean sheet odds against Liverpool this week, so they are expected to score, only a 13% chance there. And, when Liverpool score, it does tend to be Mo Salah. And as I said, you just can't ignore the form that he's in right now. He has 6 double-digit hauls in his last 7 games. So for me, I think he's going to be right up for it against Everton in this derby game. So we're going to be picking Mo Salah this week. However, as I mentioned, I do think it could be a difficult fixture for him. So if you didn't want to go there and you wanted to pick someone differential, Ollie Watkins for me is definitely the guy. He's up against Southampton, who are the worst defence in the league so far this season. They have just conceded 5 goals to Chelsea midweek, away from home as well, Chelsea were. This is a home fixture for Aston Villa. They've got 32.3 expected goals conceded, and they've conceded a massive 30 goals this season, which averages over 2 per game conceded. Now, as I mentioned, Brentford being the second worst in the Premier League for chances conceded centrally, Southampton are actually the worst. They have 119 chances through the middle, which is obviously where Ollie Watkins plays. And we're looking at the top XG for the season. Villa are currently sitting in 6th place behind, a lot of your big teams, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, Spurs and Arsenal. Now, if we look at the games where Southampton have played against these teams, against Chelsea, obviously during the week they conceded 5. Against Liverpool, they conceded 3. Arsenal, they conceded 3. Only managed to concede 1 in a 1-0 loss to Man City, and have yet to play Spurs. So they've got Villa away from home, still a couple injuries in that defence. I really think Villa could take quite a few off of them. So if you are looking for a differential captain, Ollie Watkins would be my choice. And that is going to be it for this captaincy video. If you do agree with the choice, make sure to leave it in the comments. Make sure to leave a like as well if you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe because we do this every single week. And I'll see you all in the next one.